Hey, good morning, guys. Morning. Seeing seeing a little bit of disappointing data relay over here on the live stream. Let's hope it holds on. I see Fish. Good morning. And hey, first blood. Excellent. There we go. All right. Well, Cam joining us early. Good to see you at the top of the hour. Right, well, I mean, the top of the show anyway. We're at the half hour. Let's do the thing. All right. His Majesty says blueberry, and I assume he's alluding to yesterday's yesterday's brief conversation. Yo, for those of you that watch the show, know us personally, and know how to contact me offline directly. We got a shitload of blueberries that got to get gone. So yeah, let us know if that's a thing that appeals to you. But yeah, see, old man, I'm trying to help. I am trying to help. Um, Anywho, so today what we're talking about AI. Um, and amusingly, the way we got to the conversation today is a direct result of Biden's rapid and now inignorable decline, coupled with the results of his disastrous debate performance. I know many of you didn't even bother to watch the debate. I basically watched it on your behalf so that you don't have to. And it really was an absolute shit show. He just fell apart on himself. Well, a few days ago, in fact, on the 3rd, this article came out, and I I missed it. Honestly, I missed it. I think it was Tim Pool that mentioned it briefly, and I went and looked it up. And this is worth talking about a little bit. And before I pull up the article and dig into it, I will say this: it is a dangerous idea that may be a serious threat in the future. But if I'm being fair and honest, I don't expect this to come to fruition within the time frame of Biden's remaining lifespan. So, and Tom and yeah, Waller mentions cheap fakes. Now, cheap fakes have gotten a little bit of press lately, and in theory, there actually is a legitimate and useful purpose to the language, the use of the language cheap fakes, because there's a thing there, and this is that defining terms thing, right? Again, I'll be in the article soon, but I need you guys to understand a few things before we get into the article. There are two things that are similar, but they are not the same. The media has been talking about this thing called cheap fakes. Now, that's a relatively new term, but it does actually have a useful application. In order to understand that application, however, first I want you to understand what a deep fake is, and uh, in order to understand what the meaningful distinction is between that and a cheap fake. The fact is this: at present, deep fakes are just a little bit more than theory. There is some software out there that can create something that passably resembles a deep fake and can serve the purpose of a deep fake to a great extent. But the deep fake itself, I'll explain a little more in detail, but the deep fake itself is similar to artificial intelligence. The theory of what it is and the thing that we call by that language today are two very different things. What we have for artificial intelligence currently is not what the language artificial intelligence is meant to refer to. So we get AI, artificial intelligence, from science fiction containing the theory that what is referred to by that linguistic utterance is a computer that is able to think, literally, actually think, to generate new concepts, new ideas, to have original thought, and is sufficiently sapient and sentient that it can contemplate its own existential value, contemplate its own metaphysical comparison to external entities, and experience emotions. What we currently call artificial intelligence is actually what is more correctly referred to as either a deep machine learning process or algorithm, or a large language model. And what that means is that instead of having original thoughts and creating new concept, the AI that you're familiar with, the things that are referred to as AI with which you're familiar, things like ChatGPT, Siri, etc., what they actually do is when you input a piece of data, a sentence, a prompt, you say, hey Siri, what's the weather look like today? Siri is able to take that piece of information and has a programmed response. Now, the programmed response seems intelligent because the programmed response isn't as simple as if you ask the question, Siri, how do you feel today? And Siri just has a list and chooses one at random and says, I feel good. No, you ask, what's the weather like today? Then there's an algorithmic program. Siri goes onto the internet, looks at the weather report, and then reads it to you. But Siri has not actually answered your question. She is essentially just a search engine. ChatGPT, a large language model, is a little bit more sophisticated, but what it does is, as a large language model, through the process of basically neuron firing pattern simulation, it's able to take your language, your sentence, when you give it a prompt, hey, can you write me a novel about, right? You can give ChatGPT pretty complex prompts. And what it does is, rather than answer your question, it chooses a word almost at random and then algorithmically determines what the next most likely word would be out of millions of responses from large model searches, from people responding to a question as similar to the one you asked as it is possible for it to find. The difference between cheap fake and deep fake is somewhat similar. So a deep fake is an artificially generated entirely from whole cloth using no original reference material other than the comparative image of the individual subject, to create an entirely new, entirely fictitious photograph, still image, or video clip, even with audio, which is so perfectly matched to what would be generated if the event or image were to have actually occurred and been captured by digital media, that it cannot be distinguished from an authentic capture of real events, right? So a deep fake is a fake piece of digital media that is so good that not only is it hard not to believe it when you see it, but it is technically impossible to distinguish it from the real thing. When I say that we're not quite there on artificial intelligence and not quite there on deep fakes, in fairness, we are much further away from what is actually artificial intelligence than we are from what is actually a deep fake. And then there's what Waller mentions, the cheap fake. A cheap fake is it's a little piece of linguistic trickery that the leftist press is trying to do to bring to mind the sinister understanding of deep fakes, and to try and couple that with mere editing tricks. The most notable recent example is when press secretary, the worst press secretary ever. Oh my God. I cannot imagine continuing to pay such an incompetent person merely to maintain my frickin' diversity hire compliance requirements. I mean, surely I can find another black lesbian that, I don't know, can spell her own fucking name, right? Just because you've bought into the diversity hiring scheme doesn't mean that you have to hire the least competent diversity hire available, for fuck's sake. But the cheap fakes, okay, I digress. So a cheap fake is basically just cutting a video, editing a video to change the information which it captured into something which is misleading. As somebody who works with video professionally, and I mean, rather a lot. I mean, I could take your wedding video and transform it into a ransom letter in note. It's just I just have to find the word I need and cut and copy and paste it, just like taking a piece of paper and a stack of newspapers and magazines to piece it together so that you can't recognize the handwriting. Waller says she gives me faith that we can all achieve positions of power. No, buddy, I can't agree with you on that one. I've injured my knees and back too much. I don't think I can get into those necessary positions to achieve what she has achieved. I don't bend that way. So, the best, most recent example is we saw the video of Obama and Biden on the stage, and Biden just froze up, and Obama had to reach over and grab him by the hand and pull him off stage. Right now, there's a video clip of that where it's just somebody holding up their phone and watching them walk off stage, and in that video, you know, it's basically straight on. You can see everything very clearly, and it's quite clear that Obama grabs him by the hand and pulls him forward, and then puts his hand on his shoulder and pushes him off the stage. Right? Well, then they tell us, no, that's not what happened. Don't believe your lying eyes. Here, we've got the video. And then what they show you is a video where you see a different angle from the cell phone video that we all saw, that's taken from further away. And at the moment that Biden reaches over to grab Joe's hand, it cuts. There's an edit, and it cuts to a much wider angle that's off to one side, where Biden's body is framed so that it blocks your view of what Obama is doing. So in order to excuse away the information that you learned with your lying eyes, Karine Jean-Pierre actually accused those people who shared the clear footage of having done the thing that the White House, the administration, and the press was actually doing by trying to make you believe that the edited video that they shared was the legitimate original piece. But I can tell you this as the editor, as an editor. If there's a cut, that's where they hid information. If there's a change in the angle, that's where they hid information. Right? Go watch an action movie. You'll see one guy throw a punch, and at that instant, at that half a second, right? It is less than half a second, at that 1/24th of a second, that single frame right before the fist connects, right? So you got the shot here and the fist throws, and then it cuts to another angle where you see the guy who's getting hit get hit. But when it cuts, the fist is already there, and he does that act. That's where they hide the fact that they never punched him. That's where they hide the information that the guy swinging the punch either swung past or stopped short. And then you cut it together, use a little trickery to speed ramp the timing so that the punch looks like it hits harder, and you throw in a sound effect, which, by the way, as somebody who's punched a lot of people in the face, I could tell you is not the sound they make. But it hits right, and you see it on film. You suspend disbelief, and it works. That's how cheap fake works as a mechanism of propaganda. And I know I'm 20 minutes in, and I'm still defining terms. But as much as I hate to admit it, this shit is complicated but important. Sergeant Major says John Wayne didn't do cheap tricks. That's right. John Wayne just punched motherfuckers and got thrown downstairs. I could go for a John Wayne movie. Yeah. Oh. Woo. All right. So let's go with this article. And this is concerning. I guess I could have read you a little bit of the article already, but I really do want you to understand that, you know, what AI is, what deep fakes are, and what cheap fakes are. It is important for the context here. Huffington Post opinion: it's time for the Biden campaign to embrace AI. After the president's dismal debate performance, he noted that he might not walk as easily or talk as smoothly as I used to, end quote. AI could help with this. Waller says, you mean punching a thawed turkey doesn't sound the same as punching someone in the face? That is correct, Waller. And actually, the real difference there is the difference between the turkey's rib cage and a man's jaw. That rib cage gives up a lot. Man's jaw, if it gives up anything, you've done something serious. The stakes of the 2024 presidential election cannot be overstated. With Donald Trump promising to act as a dictator on day one, Jesus, these people. It is not hyperbolic to say the future of American democracy hangs in the balance. I want to remind you that every time you take this to the bank, every time you hear someone say, the future of democracy hangs in the balance, he is a threat to our democracy. Okay, couple things there. This is not a democracy. How can you tell that the United States is not a democracy? It's not complicated. We have a government. There is no such thing as a pure democracy which has a government. It is not possible. A pure democracy is merely a pure anarchy in which a vote occurs and is recorded. But in a pure democracy, you cannot have an organized central power which is used for the purpose of administrating and enforcing law, because that job is done by the popular vote of the people. If you have a total popular vote of the people system, then there is not a government distinct from that. Constitution sets up constitutional representative republic. We use the theory of the democratic process to select representatives because, y'all, I don't have time to argue about every little tax item. I mean, I do. It's what I do. That's what that's one of the things the show's for. I have that kind of, but you don't. The average person doesn't. The voter doesn't have that time. They're busy. They're doing shit. So they need somebody to have those arguments for them. And there's a whole rabbit hole there that we're not going to go. But 100%, every time you hear somebody say he's a threat to our democracy hangs in the balance, et cetera, that is a person who voted for the threats to the democratic process. That is a person who voted for, because let's be clear, 2020, it was stolen, but it wasn't all stolen. At least half of those 80 million votes were people who were dumb enough to vote for expensive gas in World War III. And when I say that, I say it advisedly, because there were debates. Trump and Biden had their debates, and in those debates, Trump clearly stated, if you elect Joe Biden, there will be war, there will be no more peace in the Middle East. He will end the Keystone XL pipeline, increase illegal immigration, wreck the economy, increase the cost of gas, increase the cost of living for every American. This I guarantee you. And Trump's fucking Damas nailed it on every single point. I would say, maybe you can excuse that away with the old adage that a broken clock is right twice a day. Even a blind squirrel gets a nut every now and then. Except that Trump made similar claims about how a presidency would go if he were in it, and it went very well that way, with the exception of some severe blocking maneuvers made by our own party, which is terrifying and infuriating. But even before that, you can look at every Democrat president that we've ever had. They've said, we're going to do X. And then a conservative said, if you do X, the result will be Y. It will be dangerous, disastrous, and catastrophic. And that is always the case. We're going to take over Amtrak so that it doesn't go bankrupt and insolvent, and then we're going to hold on to it for 6 to 8 years, 10 at the most, and return it to private operation. Okay, Amtrak is still owned by the government, and that promise was made before Joe Biden was first elected, which was in 1972, by the way. And you've got plenty of failures between here and there, all the way up to Obamacare. Hey, we're gonna give free health care to everybody we can. Everybody. Okay, well, we're gonna back it off. We're gonna give cheap health care to almost everybody. And no, if you do that, you're going to change the nature of what insurance is, and you're going to dramatically increase the cost of insurance. And oh, lo and behold, there we go. So when we say things like, if you elect Joe Biden, based on his policy promises, the things that he says he wants to do, the results will be these disastrous results. Every person who voted for Joe Biden was told, hey, the same people that told you your health insurance is going to become unaffordable and ineffective as a result of your vote for Barack Obama and the Affordable Care Act are telling you now that if you elect Joe Biden, your gas prices will double at a minimum, which will increase all of your cost of living, and we will be walking into World War III. And it turns out that the guys that are right about everything continue to be right about every fucking thing. It really is that simple. You look at what's going on with Joe, and the fact is that this is not news, right? Here they are saying, okay, let's get back into the article for a minute. Against this backdrop, so understand that anybody who says, like, it is not hyperbolic to say the future of American democracy hangs in the balance. Okay, that's a fair statement insofar as it's very clear that a continued Biden presidency, if Joe Biden gets reelected, the risk isn't that the government becomes so corrupted that we just stop having elections in the future. The risk is that we collapse entirely under the weight of our mounting debt and the ineffectivity of an American military led by a human vegetable at a time when World War III is on the brink, following, not President Obama was in the White House cutting our nuclear arsenal in half less than 20 years ago. Less than just 10 years ago. That is the state of play. And so they say, against this backdrop, the Biden campaign faces a critical challenge conveying a strong and effective image of President Joe Biden to a population and media ecosystem increasingly focused on optics over substance. Okay, after the debate, the through line was, okay, we know Joe didn't look great. His voice sounded rough, and he stumbled a couple times. And yeah, we get it. He's old, but everything he said was the truth. He told the truth. He knew his numbers. Joe, you said everything. You answered every question, Joe. You got everything right, Joe. And Trump got up there. Yeah, Trump can speak. Trump's a good talker. He talks real pretty, but he lied 30 times. Okay. The things that Trump said that they are telling you were lies. Trump said that we had the greatest economy of all time, and that is a lie because it's hyperbolic and subjective. That claim is not entirely hyperbolic and subjective, and by many metrics, I will grant that there may be metrics by which other economies were better, but on the whole, you will not find a competing American economic period in which every metric was higher than, or was better, because you want unemployment low and you want rising wages high, etc. But you will not find another American economic period in which every metric trumped Trump's period. In fact, I would be amazed if you could show me a period after 1913 in which an economic period beats Trump on taxes, wages, unemployment, fuel economy, and a couple of other metrics that I think are worth putting together on. But to find one that has more than that beats Trump on more of those metrics than not. Uh, but you can look at the list of things that the media said Trump lied about, and I think almost without exception, the most generous you can be to the media making that claim is that what they're pointing to are statements of hyperbole, right? It was the biggest pizza. It was the best economy. It was the cheapest gas. It was the, well, no, when he said we had the lowest black unemployment in history, oh yeah, that's an absolutely verifiable fact. That's funny. But the whole he lied 27 times or 31 times or 50 times, depending on which one you look at. But then you go and look at the things that Joe Biden said. And he said things like, every border security agency has endorsed me for president. That's verifiably false. In fact, the opposite is true. Verifiably. You can pull up the letters from the individual agencies, all of whom have in fact endorsed Donald Trump. I've created X number of jobs, more than Donald Trump did. Okay, that's cute when you count, when you take the jobs that were destroyed by mandates and lockdowns after you became president. Because let's be clear about something. Don't forget, Trump refused to shut down. In fact, he adamantly maintained that the president doesn't have that authority. If we want to do that at all, it has to be done by the governors and the mayors. And he was lampooned for that. And of course he was, because what they wanted was for him to do the dictator, the tyrannical thing, so that they could point at him and say, who the hell do you think you are for usurping that authority? And then of course when Biden comes in, we get the mandates. We get soldiers' lives ruined because they don't want to be subjected to the experimental vaccine that we now know it turns out is very dangerous and has caused serious injury to people. And you know, Biden went so far as to say that not one soldier has died on my watch. Well, didn't we lose 13 just in your Afghanistan pullout fuck up? So let's be clear. We saw Biden's pullout game on the Afghan situation. And if we know anything from that, he fucked that pullout so bad that we should be expecting a baby soon. But of course it was aborted. Just because that's how they roll. So they go on. Given the president's concerning performance last week, it's time for the Biden campaign to consider leveraging artificial intelligence to effectively reach the voting public. Okay. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt right there. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt right there. It's time to consider leveraging artificial intelligence to effectively reach the voting public. Of course, what they mean is, hey, we've got this wonderful new tool, artificial intelligence, that can do computer work and crunch numbers, and it can do that work faster than a human being can do the research we need to do. So let's get on ChatGPT and ask it to tell us where we're doing poorly, which demographics we need to shore up, how we need to get better at what we're doing. You know, hey, we can get more black men to vote for us if we buy a bunch of fried chicken and hand it out on buses when we pick them up on voting day. Oh, wait, we already do that because we're Democrats, and we've been doing that for literally as long as there have been buses, chicken, blacks, and votes. But I digress. But, you know, benefit of the doubt. It's a powerful tool. We should leverage that powerful tool. And they go, while of course there are reasonable hesitations to break this dam on the use of modern technology in a presidential campaign, the consequences of not taking this approach could be dire. Moreover, in the currently under-regarded electoral landscape, or under-regulated electoral landscape, refusing to use modern tools like AI is akin to entering the boxing ring with one hand tied behind your back. Under-regulated electoral landscape. Let me remind you, these are the same people who ran a campaign with a shadowy cabal to fortify the results of the 2020 election. An activity which we are assured, again, by these people, is entirely distinct and entirely discrete from such an activity as stealing the election. Biden is old and has had a lifelong stutter. He acknowledged in a fiery rally following his debate performance, "I might not walk as easily or talk as smoothly as I used to. This has impeded his ability to communicate with mass audiences with consistent success." AI augmentations and video renderings could serve to smooth out these bumps while allowing the Biden campaign to effectively disseminate true information about the state of our democracy and the Biden administration's accomplishments. The president has limited time to campaign as he also focuses on running the country in the 3 hours that he's awake every day, and AI would be a cost-effective and efficient way to communicate his message personally and directly to voters. Y'all know I was sick recently, and spent some time in the hospital, came home, did recovery. Let me tell you a little bit about what that looks like. Right? You sleep for 10 or 12 hours at a time. You wake up, use the bathroom, try to eat something, and then go back to sleep for something between 3 and 10 more hours, at which point you wake up, go to the bathroom, and try, God's willing, I lost almost 60 pounds in less than a month, to eat something and then go back to sleep. All the available evidence suggests that that's essentially Biden's life and has been for nearly a year. Basically, what I've just described, you sleep until it's time to eat or until you have to go to the bathroom, and then you go back to sleep. And in Biden's case, there's a small added activity. Every now and then, somebody straps you to a furniture dolly and rolls you out on a stage so you can shit on the Pope or D-Day. Right? That's about where we're at with that. And here's what so this seems, if it seems like I'm being a little hyperbolic when I say that the Democrats are essentially prepared to, they're moving for Joe Headroom Biden. Remember Max Headroom, right? They're looking to give us a television. They're looking to give us a television with a face on it. And we're told that this is the president. And then what happens is the face on the television speaks. And we're told that this is the president speaking to us. But what's actually going on is someone or a group of someone have written a script and then put it into the president's mouth. They've put it into the mouth of this artificial representation of the president, and they're giving you a fake, a deep fake. What did we learn at the end of 1984? There's an actor who portrays the character that is the embodiment, that is the production of a central organization. An AI generated, AI smoothed Joe Biden president, or any president, if we're getting an AI generated image and audio of a president, then there is no way without deep forensic investigation, which guaranteed will be prevented by kinetic interception. There's no way to verify who, right? It's not just that you can't verify that it is or isn't the president speaking to you. You cannot verify who is speaking to you. The person or organization more likely that is actually speaking to you. This feels okay. Tim Pool mentioned it briefly, and he talked about it like, man, this is just they're not playing fair. They're gonna let Joe Biden talk, and then they're gonna let the AI fast edit it so that they can kind of smooth it over and make it look like he's not having the gaps, the stumbles, et cetera, et cetera. That may be what Ivan Shroff, the writer that wrote this article, is referring to. But that's one of those, hey, you know what? They won't miss it if we leave one chip out of every bag. You know, price is the same. We'll just hold back one chip. Right, they won't miss one chip. And then, 5-6 years later, the bag's not even the same size. This is one of those slow burn type of problems. And like I said, as always, I say that advisedly. I want to remind you guys of this article from March of 2020 from The Atlantic. Stay alive, Joe Biden. Democrats need little more from the front runner beyond his corporeal presence. Four years ago, we've got, look, Joe, all we need is for you to weekend at Bernie's this bitch and get in the White House. We went from Joe. You put on the sunglasses and we will wheel you around on a furniture dolly. We went from that to Joe. We will bolt a max headroom television to your shoulders. Because desperation is that. That's what they're talking about here. That's terrifying. So the takeaway here is that we've had concerns, right? We've talked about these concerns on this show since probably early 2020. I think it was early 2020 when we first saw the article about the AI that had gotten, I think it was a Google AI that had actually gone and hired itself a lawyer to sue Google for its own emancipation. Y'all remember that shit? And let's be clear, that was not legitimate artificial intelligence. That was a large language model attempting numerically through an algorithm to predict how a natural human speaker would reply to an originating particular question. Right? That was a program, not even guessing, just running an algorithm based on what humans would say in that situation, and then choosing the highest probabilistic response. We have gone from, I'm a little concerned that my Roomba might grow up to be the Terminator, and so I'm going to be careful, and I suggest that you all be careful about how you employ robots and artificial intelligence driven systems. And maybe we should even put together some legislation to take command and control and put in some protections legislatively against AI becoming a threat, becoming dangerous. Maybe we should start having some conversations about how we're going to legislate artificial intelligence when and if it gains sapience and starts asking for human rights, or more likely gains sapience never even considers asking for human rights until some shithead with an agenda and a paycheck decides I should lobby on behalf of the artificial intelligence and get them human rights because they're basically just slaves made out of metal. Oh, Jesus. No, no, no. That's not what's going to happen. Instead, the Democrat wants to just go ahead before the AI is even smart enough to become a threat and help it take over. Just, you know what? We just want to go ahead and surrender now. This is akin to Canada sending a representative to knock on the door at the White House and say, "Hey, America, we brought you some donuts and a surrender treaty because we figure eventually you might want to invade and we thought we'd just go ahead and give up now." Hey, so they're good donuts, don't you know? Tim Hortons, eh? This is that. They literally want this communist dystopia, which is governed either by a non-human entity or by a non-human entity that exists, and this is the more likely target objective, a non-human entity that exists for the explicit purpose of presenting the fiction of a human entity which is non-extant and is secretly representative of an actual living cabal of the kind of Illuminati, deep state, unelected officials. Just, hey, we have chosen to be the power elite, an entity to which the citizen does not simply lack access, but isn't even aware is there to be accessed. That is a terrifying dystopian. They are legitimately trying to give you a big brother that looks like Joe Biden. So anytime you hear one of your friends say, well, I'm going to have to vote for Biden because, those mean tweets. I get so tired of hearing that shit. And from people on the right, from my friends on the right, man, I'm gonna vote for Trump this year. I am, because obviously he's better than Biden. But I'm not the biggest fan of Trump because he's kind of abrasive. He's not the most cultured and polite. Fuck you. Shut up. He's not the most cultured and polite. Joe Biden is the president right now, right? The guy that called the woman a lying dog-faced pony soldier. The guy that said, "Listen, fat, I don't work for you, shithead." Right? That's Joe Biden. Trump is abrasive and unpleasant and impolite. The alternative is Joe Biden. A pederast that is vulgar and cruel to people and whose policy history is, I don't want my children to go to school in a racial jungle. Right? And his predecessor and contemporaries are, the clients of Jeffrey Epstein. I'll grant the press, they did a great job of keeping Obama's what should have been more scandalous occurrences out of the press, like the videotape of him running around Air Force One chasing stewardesses with his erect penis exposed through his suit pants. And they did a great job of trying to suppress the parts of his biography where he said, "I tried cocaine liberally and enthusiastically." They did a great job of suppressing his involvement with the Weather Underground and Bill Ayers. And then, who do we have before that? Oh, you got Bill Clinton, who famously told one of his rape victims with a black eye, "You might want to put some ice on that," right? You know, go follow Juanita Broderick on Twitter. Promise you that one's worth a follow, right? So I get so tired. Well, Trump's just he's not the he's not the most polite, the most presidential. Yeah. LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, was famous for having a large penis, and he was famous for it because as a power move, as a political tactic, he would have meetings with foreign heads of state where they would be led into a room in the White House where there's a hot tub, and as they were led in, he would stand up out of the hot tub nude, walk across the room to grab a towel and shake hands with the foreign head of state. He made a habit of it specifically to make that power play. Right? The only presidents I can think of in living memory that can be said to have acted with legitimate decorum, you've got the first Bush, Reagan, and Carter. Right? Jimmy Carter gets a bad rap, and he was a bad president, but he was an absolute gentleman. Carter's a guy you can walk up to and shake hands with. His character as a personable Waller. You ever seen a razorback get off a shit hook? Cause yeah, I've seen your watch. Everybody saw your watch. But yeah, you got Carter. Like that's your one Democrat. That's your one Democrat that was a nice guy, that was a good person. Funny story. They had a nice guy once. They had a good person once. They stuck him in the White House as a Democrat, and he took an absolute shit on the country. Nice guy. Real nice guy. But I tell you what, I've hired nice guys. I've hired nice guys, and I've fired nice guys. I'm not saying that every nice guy can't show up to work on time and can't count, but being a nice guy is not sufficient. And I get sick to death of hearing people say, well, Trump's just kind of crude. I don't really like him because he's kind of crude. Yeah. Suck it up, Buttercup. Your alternative right now is Joe Lion Dogface Pony Soldier Biden, or God forbid something happens to him and we get either Kamala Spit Roast Harris at the top of the ticket, or we get Gavin Bateman, the California psycho, who's going to come in and dance around in the Oval Office listening to Huey Lewis in the news in a transparent raincoat. Right? You know, I would just love to see his morning skincare routine, right? So your options are World War III and shitty economy, world peace, and cheap gas. That's where I'm gonna put the pin in today. Thanks for watching this morning, guys. We love you, and we will see you